Let's imagine you want to throw some undead at your party, but you're not happy with any of the published monsters. Maybe you're running an adventure like Curse of Strahd, and you feel like you've already used all the good undead monsters in cool, unique ways. Maybe your players are also dungeon masters, so nothing in the book scares them anymore, because they basically know what everything is and what it can all do. Maybe your group has been playing 5th edition every week for 8 years, so there's nothing in the books anymore that surprises them. Well, here's the thing. You don't even need to use a new monster if you don't want to. You can just reskin stuff. For example, how about a Wraith? They're a fun undead, they're spooky, and when they hit you, they drain your hit point maximum. But the problem is that the party knows as soon as they see a Wraith, they just need to find a light source. But what if you could reskin the appearance of the Wraith and add some different flavor to their attacks without changing the mechanics at all? Could you keep your party guessing? Yeah, I bet you probably could. This is a clip from the Legend of Vox Machina episode 4, and everyone who was watching this episode who knew D&D or played it was trying to figure out what these monsters were. They're obviously undead. Even if we hadn't seen Delilah raise them out of graves, we could tell. I mean, just look at them. But are they wraiths? Well, that was my guess. But they don't look incorporeal. They don't look like wraiths. They almost look more like zombies or Dementors. It's not really clear what they are. I saw other people guessing that these might be ghosts or wights or specters or shadows. And that's the point. No one knew for sure, not even if they were extremely familiar with D&D, until the creators confirmed it in an interview. And you can do that too. Not confirm things in an interview on Amazon Prime or on the Critical Role Twitch channel, but do the other part. I don't reskin monsters very often, but I want to start doing it more, because a lot of my players do run their own games as a dungeon master. And the moment I describe a monster the way it appears in the monster manual, they kind of relax. Even if they think the fight is going to be challenging, there's some visible relief. They don't necessarily know everything that monster can do off the top of their head, but it still sort of exists in that safe zone of the known unknown. But if I can show them a monster that seems completely foreign to them, then that monster becomes a true unknown and they won't take anything for granted. While I was musing over all of this, I found a passage from the first Greyhawk supplement for D&D, way back from 1976. I don't often go back and read old D&D books, but when they do cross my path, I will steal from them. There's a link to the list below so you can follow along, but I'm going to read through this list and we're going to discuss some of these possibilities. All right, so this is the list from the original Greyhawk supplement called Monstrous Tricks and Combination Monsters. Let's read it off. Monstrous Tricks and Combination Monsters, additions. This is in addition to a previous page. Animals which appear to be perfectly harmless but are deadly. For example, oxen which are crossbred with gorgons. Gorgons are the metal bowls filled with acid. Small lizards which are able to breathe fire. Creatures which grow to huge size if approached too closely. All creatures get bigger when you approach them closer, Gary. But no, I know what they mean. Maybe. So that's a weird one. Or animals which turn into some horrid monster if they are touched are typical examples. I don't know if anything's a typical example at this point. This is a brand new supplement. But typical examples for his game, maybe. A giant with faces or multiple heads which can never be surprised, and with 4 additional eyes, is able to see invisible and hidden objects and coordinate no less than 2 attacks per round. Jeez. And I mean, they must not have had that many attacks at the time, but you could really, if you have multiple eyes and 4 additional eyes, I would give you more than 1 other attack. Giants known as rock giants, which so closely resemble stone that they can seldom be detected. 1 in 12 is a good percentage. I personally love that. I think that while the stone giant scene in the Hobbit movie isn't good, it's a cool concept. Like, I like the idea of a stone giant being very literal. Fire-resistant mummies. I've used one of those before. It's a lot of fun. Many players will get used to frying these monsters with oil, but watch the fun when they run into one of these critters. I love how much he editorialized that. I love how much he was like, oh, by the way, this is gonna freak them out. That's very fun. Skeletons who are able to hurl their finger joints as if they were magic arrows. Monsters which are in endless supply due to a magical point of origin. Greyhawk had a fountain on its 2nd level which issued endless numbers of snakes. So for those who don't know, Greyhawk wasn't just like a world, Greyhawk was actually a dungeon. So it was a dungeon in Gary's world. And that's all that he really was concerning himself with, was fleshing out this dungeon. So that's what he's referring to when he talks about that fountain. Containers which are filled with a gas or liquid which turns into a monster if the gas or liquid is dispensed. Similar types of monsters who dwell and act together, such as a Medusa riding a Gorgon, or one who has a pet basilisk and a pet cockatrice. I think it's funny that they linked the Medusa with the Gorgon, because the monsters in the game are not similar at all, but the Gorgon, the Medusa in mythology was a Gorgon, so I don't know what they're going for there. A Balrog riding a fire giant, or a Balrog with salamanders as servants, or a Balrog with a pet fire-breathing hydra. Those are all dope. A frost giant riding a white dragon. Dissimilar monsters who still act in combination, such as a troll with a magic spear riding a purple worm. Jesus Christ! A lord, that must be a specific type of, like an NPC basically. A lord with magical arms and armor riding a wyvern. An ogre mage mounted upon a manticore. Ogre mage is the Oni in 5th edition. They bounce back and forth, I believe, on whether they were going to call it an Oni or an ogre mage, but it's the same thing in 5th edition. An evil high priest riding a chimera. Great. Hero/warlock elves mounted upon Lamassu. A Lamassu, I think, is it's not a manticore exactly. It's like a good manticore. It's like it's got eagle wings instead of bat wings, and it's got a human face, but it's not like scary. I don't know much about it, but there's no equivalent in 5th edition, but you can make something up, I'm sure. Thieves with bugbear guards, that's great. A cloud giant riding a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Huh, look at that. Gary Gygax thought having dinosaurs in D&D was not a big deal. Interesting that we have to keep having the same arguments decades later. A wizard with a pack of hellhounds. Mars mounted upon Talos' shoulder. So that's straight up the god of war on top of Talos. So Talos was one of my favorite characters in mythology. He's barely a character. He's just like a thing, like the Colossus of Rhodes, but he's a metal statue. And as people sailed underneath him, their weapons were like magnetically brought up to his body, so they were disarmed. At least in the storybook that I read as a kid. I've always loved Talos. And Mars riding on his shoulders, like a chicken fight, very funny. But that would be dope. Of a similar nature are monsters which appear to be something other than they actually are, such as an ogre jelly monster, which appears to be a mere ogre, but indeed. A snake, which is actually a gray ooze. A giant spider-like black pudding. A symbiotic dragon, which spits out ochre jelly, black pudding, etc. A seeming golden dragon, which is actually mobile yellow mold. Yellow mold is like, it absorbs heat from things. It's actually pretty dangerous and scary. The possibilities here are numerous and very deadly, and these combinations should only be used sparingly or very deep in the dungeons. I've read this document before. It is, I just love it so much. It's exactly what D&D should be able to be sometimes, which is weird and inventive and kind of bonkers. I'm into it. So in conclusion, if Gary Gygax said that you can make a mummy resistant to fire or have a dragon spit out oozes, then I think the least we can do is reflavor our wraiths and specters so that the players don't know what to expect. Hopefully this list has got you thinking about other fun things you could do with monsters in your games. I imagine at least one of these sounds like fun to you. Or maybe you're even thinking about how you can structure an entire dungeon or adventure around one of these. I know I am. I hope you'll let me know which one of these is your favorites in the comments below, along with how you might integrate it into your game. In the old days, they'd probably just show up in the middle of a dungeon, but the hobby has evolved a bit since then, so I imagine you might have some more nuanced ideas. Or just let me know if this has gotten you thinking about a different way to use a different monster, one that's not even on this list. I won't spoil it yet, but this has gotten me thinking about some cool, unexpected ways to use an aboleth. And I'm pretty excited to try my hand at that stat block. Also, we are definitely going to look at more monster books in the future. I want to look at the 4th edition monster manual in particular, because that system really encouraged different creative monster combinations. And I want to see what we can learn from that. But here's a question. When you create an original monster or reflavor one dramatically, how do you describe it at the table? Wait a minute. Describe the monster. Describe. D-S-C-R-Y-B. That's it. Determine special customization randomly. Why use books? Instead of using the descriptions in the handbook, I'll create spreadsheets with every word in the English language, and then I'll roll randomly for every word when I describe the monster. Oh, or actually, you know what? Maybe instead I'll just sign up for Describe. They have a team of professional writers who create scenes that you can read aloud at your table to make your games more immersive. And they take requests. So if you want to create a custom monster and send the scene request to the team, they'll take it on themselves to write the perfect description of your unique creation. And then that description will be available to the community so anyone else can use that scene in their own game. So if you want to submit, say, a beholder, but instead of eyes it has teeth, you can do that. But they won't provide the stats for you. If you want to come up with the idea of a beholder, but instead of eyes it has teeth, that's your job. You're the one who brought that foulness into the world. You're the one who suggested it. You should at least take on some of the burden and come up with the stats yourself, you monster. But they will help you with the description. And Describe has been kind enough to sponsor this video. If you visit describe.com/supergeek and use the code SUPERGEEK, you'll save 10% off your first subscription payment. That's dscryb.com/supergeek and using the code SUPERGEEK. And once you sign up, you can request the description for a beholder, but instead of eyes, it has teeth. Actually, you know what? Let me see if I can do something. Hey Describe, you know how you have more than 7,000 scenes that dungeon masters can read or paraphrase aloud at their games to give a more immersive experience, and you also take requests if people want to submit something specific? Well, I wanted to submit a beholder, but instead of eyes, it has teeth. Okay, great, thank you. Yeah, they did that. They did that for me. I asked them and they did it. It's on the website. Thank you again to Describe for supporting the channel. Thank you so much for watching. This was a really fun video to make, and I am excited to do more like it in the future. If you want to support what we do here on the channel, there are a few ways to do that. You can subscribe and hit the bell and you'll get notified as soon as new videos come out. You can sign up for my Patreon. Any dollar amount really helps me make these videos as good as they can be. You can join my Discord and be a part of an ongoing, growing community of really cool people. And you can sign up for my newsletter for updates, blog posts, new videos, random musings, and whatever else I've got going on that's newsworthy. Thank you again for watching, and until next time, play fair and have fun.